would say that at all points, whether it was the competition between the U.S. and Japan in the 80s and the 70s, or the Cold War before that, or different other times, people always thought that the democratic model, which is slow to mobilize, but very strong once it does, and once people get bought into a direction and understand the issue, I do think that will continue to be the best way to spread prosperity around the world and make progress in a way that meets people's needs. And that's why, when we're talking about internet policy, when you're talking about economic policy, I think spreading regulatory frameworks that encode those values, I think is one of the most important things that we can do. But it starts with raising the issues that you are and having people be aware of the potential problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that
Welcome back to Rex Arthur TV. This is the Rex Arthur Show, where we discuss LGBTQ issues with an LGBTQ approach and an LGBTQ perspective in an LGBTQ plus planet, where each and every one of us belongs to one or two letters in the 10-letter sexual alphabet, LGBTQIAAP. And we are back, part 3 of the Mark Zuckerberg and Yuval Harari Dialectic. And as we've been discussing about dialecticism in both part 1 and 2, dialecticism is a dialogue that seeks to know the truth. And this is an old system that the Greek philosophers were using. That's why we're doing this under our philosophical umbrella, Rivers of Thought, Lava of Fikir. And we are doing a lot of understanding. I like Yuval Harari very much because he's a time scientist. That is a historian. Historians are time scientists. And I love history and I love time. And Zuckerberg is a technocrat, and technology is conquering and has conquered the world. It's completely conquered thanks to technology, and that's what has happened to everything. Everything has changed. Everything changes. Everything has changed. And so it's because of technology. And that's what you need to understand. Everything has changed. And so we're discussing about where the world is going, and we're listening to this discussion and giving our point of view. So let's continue with the video.
The last few decades, it was the case that open democratic systems were better and more efficient. And this, I'm again, one of my fears is that it might have made us a bit complacent, because we assume that this is kind of a law of nature, that distributed systems are always better and more efficient than centralized systems. And we grew up in a world in which there was kind of this, to do the good thing morally was also to do the efficient thing economically and politically. And a lot of countries liberalized their economy, their society, their politics over the last 50 years, more because they were convinced of the efficiency argument than of the deep moral argument. And what happens if efficiency and morality suddenly split? Which have happened before in history. I mean, the last 50 years are not representative of the whole of history. We had many cases before in human history in which repressive, centralized systems were more efficient, and therefore you got these repressive empires. And there is no law of nature which says that this cannot happen again. And again, my fear is that the new technology might tilt that balance. And just by making central data processing far more efficient, it could give a boost to totalitarian regimes. Also, in the balance of power between, say again, the center and the individual, that for most of history, the central authority could not really know you personally, simply because of the inability to gather and process the information. So there were some people who knew you very well, but usually their interests were aligned with yours. Like my mother knows me very well, but most of the time I can trust my mother. But now we are reaching a point when some system far away can know me better than my mother, and the interests are not necessarily aligned. Now, yes, we can use that also for good, but what I'm pointing out, that this is a kind of power that never existed before, and it could empower totalitarian and authoritarian regimes to do things that was simply technically impossible until today.
Yeah.
And you know, if you live in an open democracy, so okay, you can rely on all kinds of mechanisms to protect yourself. But thinking more globally about this issue, I think a key question is, how do you protect human attention from being hijacked by malevolent players who know you better than you know yourself, who know you better than your mother knows you? And this is a question that we never had to face before, because we never had, usually the malevolent players just didn't know me very well.
Yeah, okay, so there's a lot in what you were just talking about. I mean, I think...
Brilliant exposition by Yuval. And that is so brilliant, it hurts, because he's saying that, first of all, did very well about efficiency and the moral argument. That's the world. Forever the world will be like that. You know, we create things, and these things have both good and bad. And then afterwards, we now come with a moral argument and a moral system to sanitize these things. The problem is morality is relative. This is why you have countries that legalize homosexuality and countries that criminalize homosexuality. And it's because of the misunderstanding of the science. What's the science? Homosexuals exist. That's science. It's not about good or bad. That statement is nothing to do with morality. Morality never existed until a thing existed. There is no morality without human beings. Do you know hominids existed before Homo sapiens? And this is even what I believe about the Bible. I believe the story of Adam and Eve is the story of the Homo sapien. Adam and Eve were Homo sapiens. And therefore they were not the first human beings in the world, but they were the first family for the nation of Israel. Israel can draw itself back to those two people. And this is proven by the African tribes, their stories of origin. They also have a man and a woman. Some of them, not all of them. Yes, other religions don't have a man and a woman. Like Egypt. The Egypt believe the god masturbated and he did not have sex. He did not need to reproduce. How he was reproducing was through masturbation. And that's an African culture, the Egyptian culture. So that's what you need to understand. Not everybody has the story of Adam and Eve, that a man and a woman started the world. No. But some of them do. Now, I like talking about the Baganda because they have a very interesting story that the man Chintu met a lady called Nambi who came from heaven. And when she came from heaven, she went and told the heavenlies that I found someone and I want to stay with that person. And that's how they started the Buganda kingdom, the people of Buganda. Now, another origin story I like is the Kikuyu. They believe that the first man came from above and landed on Mount Kenya. And then when he did that, he had his wife who also came, Mumbi, and he was called Agikuyu. And then they had 9 daughters. Then when they had 9 daughters, I don't know where the other 9 men came. They were not born of Agikuyu and Mumbi. They came from another place and married these 9 girls, and then they had the 9 clans of the Kikuyu. And even the Mijikenda, I am beginning to suspect are Kikuyus, because Mijikenda means 9 cities. And to even go higher, these 9 cities are the 9 planets of the world. And that's what people need to understand. The cosmology, African cosmology. So what am I telling you? Then when you go to the Bible, they had 3 children. Seth, Cain, and Abel. And Cain killed Abel. And nobody knows, Abel never had a wife. And that's why there's no line of Abel. So it's only Cain and Seth. Seth is the one who had the line. And it is from Seth that you have the, what do you call it? The current Israel. Israel comes from Seth. And Cain's people are from, went to a different line. But anyway, they died. The line of Cain died, and so did the line of Seth, because when the flood came, it is said it destroyed the world. We don't know. Some people say it's not the world, but because you have to understand, when the people studied science, they believed the earth was flat. So when it flooded, when you flooded and you're in one area, you just think the whole world has been flooded. Because remember, these people who say the whole world was flooded, they never traveled the whole world. What are you believing? There was no Vasco da Gama. There was no Amerigo. Christopher Columbus was not yet born. So nobody navigated the whole world. So nobody knew the whole world. Even Moses did not know that there was a place called Australia. So what they used to do, if a country is very far, beyond far, they just say the world. So the world to them was their surroundings, what they knew. They knew Egypt, they knew Sudan, they knew Ethiopia, they knew Babylon, and they knew... Remember, they even did not know Italy. They even did not know England. They didn't know. So they called what they knew the world. So the flood that came, I think, was a very serious flood. Like you've seen the cyclone in Mozambique, how it can even take 1,000 people. So I think that was a very big flood that happened in Mesopotamia, in Babylon. And then look at where the boat landed. It landed in Turkey. Why did it not land in America? If it was the whole world. So that's what you should understand. So what am I trying to tell you is that the Christian religion and Judaism, their story, according to me, is about the Homo sapien Israelis. Yes, the Homo sapien Israelis. And when you study evolution, they have found human fossils that are 100,000 years old. And they're not just human, they are hominids, they are not Homo sapien. And they found them in Israel. Yes. So we evolved. But the story of the Bible is not about the first man and the first woman. Another thing I want to tell you. Do you think have you ever seen it say the first man and first woman in the Genesis? Never. It just says that God created man. And that's the explanation. The explanation, what I'm trying to tell you, stories of origin explain what they think happened. It's not the truth. It's what they think happened. because another problem, Adam did not write his story. He should have written it. Eve should have written her story. They didn't. Why? They were the first Homo sapiens in that area. And Homo sapiens never knew how to write. In fact, could they have been Homo habilis? Because Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all of these things, they were not writers. It's Homo sapiens that were writers. So even the best Homo sapien could have been Moses or Enoch. Anyway, enough of that. So I was just trying to show you something that what Yuval is saying is that the world has been, of course, gone through, we have talked about surveillance and how efficiency was used and how morality is now an issue. And I've told you how morality helps you to, morality is relative, and that's what we're having in the world. You see, technology is landing in the hands of anti-Semites. Technology is landing in the hands of homophobes. Technology is landing in the hands of racists. So it's messed up, you know. And now the technocrats like Zuckerberg don't know what to do, whether to release technology to everybody or to keep it only and release it to those you agree with. You see? So that's what you need to understand. That the technocrats may even be slow at releasing technology because the more they are releasing it, they are even releasing it to their enemies. You see? And so their enemies also now have technology and they are using it against them. So that's what's happening. And I've liked that argument by Yuval. Sorry I had to go to creation. I was just trying to show you how that people, the way the world was created, there are diverse origins of humankind, and that humans, they are different. Nobody knows how the world began. That's what I'm telling you. In fact, the closest people are the scientists with the Big Bang. Yes. Because, you know, the Big Bang theory, it is repeatable. They have done it in the lab. And they have seen, if we have these ingredients and we do it, will it happen? And it has happened. That's what has happened too. That's why I support, it's not that the scientists are right, it's that they're the closest to the truth. Now, for religion, they can also be right because of things like magic and power and miracles. Thus, a sign of cosmic powers. That means we may have come from another planet, an astral plane. And I've discussed this, and I'm going to do it when I'm going to discuss about the heaven and the different views people have about heaven. So Yuval has made a very good point about the efficiency and the fact that efficiency can be used by anybody, including a criminal.
In general, one of the things that I do think that there is a scale effect where one of the best things that we could do to if we care about these open values and having a globally connected world, I think making sure that the critical mass of the investment in new technologies encodes those values is really important. So that's one of the reasons why I care a lot about not supporting the spread of authoritarian policies to more countries, and either inadvertently doing that or setting precedents that enable that to happen. Because I think the more development that happens in the way that is more open, where the research is more open, where people have where the policy making around it is more democratic, I think that's going to be positive. So I think kind of maintaining that balance ends up being really important. And one of the reasons why I think democratic countries over time tend to do better on serving what people want is because there's no metric to optimize the society, right? It's when you talk about efficiency, a lot of what people are talking about is economic efficiency, right? Are we increasing GDP? Are we increasing jobs? Are we decreasing poverty? And those things are all good, but I think part of what the democratic process does is people get to decide on their own which of the dimensions in society matter the most to them in their lives.
If you can hijack people's attention and manipulate them, then people deciding on their own just doesn't help, because I don't realize it. That somebody manipulated me to think that this is what I want. And we are reaching the point when, for the first time in history, you can do that on a massive scale. So again, I speak a lot about the issue of free will in this regard, and the people that are easiest to manipulate are the people who believe in free will and who simply identify with whatever thought or desire pops up in their mind, because they cannot even imagine that this desire is not the result of my free will. This desire is the result of some external manipulation. Now, it may sound paranoid, and for most of history, it was probably paranoid because nobody had this kind of ability to do it on a massive scale. But here, like in Silicon Valley, the tools to do that on a massive scale have been developed over the last few decades.
I'm telling you, Yuval is dropping bombs like nothing. And we're going to be even about science. You know, it's apocalyptic. It's revealing. So Yuval is saying how people right now, because of technology, first of all, I told you everything changes, everything has changed. And so what has changed? Technology has changed everything. And one way it has changed everything, you are able to control people. You see, in the past, if you want to know the science of mind control and control of populations, you study Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was the first country in the world to have a ministry of propaganda. The propaganda ministry, its job was to preach the Nazi philosophy. Why did they need the ministry of propaganda? Ask yourself, why did they need it? And you know, propaganda in Latin means to preach. So why did they need preaching? It's because Hitler was not able to do what he did in that German society. Germany was climbing up the ladder. Even under Hitler, he tried to revive the economy, but he wanted to have an economy minus the Jews. So, because believe you me, if Jews knew Hitler was bad, they would not have stayed there. Immediately he was elected, they would have left. And you need to understand the problem of history and time is that when we read it, we understand it in our time, and that's an error. If you want to understand history, put yourself in that time, which is very hard, but put yourself in that time and then you will understand it. It's like the time machine. Have you seen the movie of the time machine? And this guy who lived in the 19th century, when he came to our century, the 21st century, he got lost. He got lost because even though he came to the 21st century, he was still in the 19th century thinking. So you're seeing people wearing miniskirts, people drinking, dancing, and like, oh, what am I seeing? So that's what happens when you time travel. Even when you read the Bible, if you go to the Garden of Eden, you will cry. For them, it was so beautiful. For you, it is like, oh my God, get me out of this place right now. It is just too much. If you lived in the camps of when the children of Israel were in the wilderness, you'll be like, oh my God, This is a hell. I'm not gonna stay here. Never again. I'm leaving this place right now. You see, that's what you need to understand about Christianity, about history. You know, if you go and live with Muhammad when he was doing his expeditions on horses, you know, running to Libya and going and telling people, believe in Allah and his prophet Muhammad, you know, you would be like, whoa, we are on horses and we are going, and people, you have swords and you're destroying idols, you're destroying. So you see, you have to put yourself there. That's why movies are good, because when you watch historical movies, they try and put you in that place. Now that's what Yuval is saying. Now that's what happened in Germany. They used to have loudspeakers. You see, technology of radio and all of these things,
Say that
they came and people were used. So what they're trying to tell you, both Mark and Yuval, is that these guys had technology was introduced to everybody, including Jew haters. And when they got it, they used it to satisfy their desire. So because you hate Jews, you can use a radio to propagate hate. That's what has even happened today in the world. Everyone has their station that is propagating what they want to propagate. Of course, these days, thankfully, most media stations are not propagating hatred as such. It is a bit mild compared to what happened in Nazi Germany, because in Nazi Germany they were feeding people with hate, feeding in different ways. Go and read it. Very interesting story, and how they used science to manipulate people. So this is what Yuval is saying, that the danger we are having now with this technology, new technology, people are now using the same science to manipulate people. And that's what happened. That's why did Hitler have to use the propaganda machine? Because by doing that, when he was going to do the final solution, nobody would stop him. The only pastor in Germany the few pastors, was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And he said, no way to what Hitler is going to do to the people. And he was killed. What was he killed for? Treason. Because he was not happy with the propaganda machine. But the rest of everybody was zombie. This is why I always tell people I don't believe in hell, because why should someone go to hell for being a zombie? Yeah. You can't go to hell for being a zombie. We blame the cosmic powers because they are the ones who use people. Yes. I tell Christians, I'm going to tell God, why did you use people to do bad things? Because that's what he does. The Bible is very clear. Pharaoh was used not to let the people of Israel go. That God hardened his heart. So why do you send Pharaoh to hell? When God hardened him. God made him his zombie. In fact, I believe that life is a movie directed by the cosmic powers. They use us. And the clever people that Yuval is talking about are the ones who know how to manipulate, to control people with science. And that's what he's saying.
So I know there's two types of questions that people raise. I mean, one is, we saw what the Russian government tried to do in the 2016 election. That is that's clear abuse. We need to build up really advanced systems for detecting that kind of interference in the democratic process and more broadly, being able to identify when people are standing up networks of fake accounts that are not behaving in a way that normal people would, to be able to weed those out and work with law enforcement and election commissions and folks all around the world and intelligence community to be able to coordinate and be able to deal with that effectively. So stopping abuse is certainly important. But I would argue that the even more, the deeper question is about the intrinsic design of the systems, right? Exactly. So not just fighting the abuse. And there, I think that the incentives are more aligned towards a good outcome than a lot of critics might say. And here's why. I think that there's a difference between what people want first order and what they want second order over time, right? So right now you might just consume a video because you think it's silly or fun, and you wake up and or you kind of look up an hour later and you've watched a bunch of videos and you're like, well, what happened to my time? And okay, so maybe in the narrow short-term period you consumed some more content, and maybe you saw some more ads, so it seems like it's good for the business, but it actually really isn't over time, because people make decisions based on what they find valuable. And what we find, at least in our work, is that what people really want to do is connect with other people, right? It's not just passively consume content. So we've had to find and constantly adjust our systems over time to make sure that we're rebalancing it, so that way you're interacting with people, so that way we make sure that we don't just measure systems in the signals in the system, like what are you clicking on, because that that could get you into a bad local optimum. But instead we bring in real people to tell us what their real experience is in words, right? Not just kind of filling out scores, but also telling us what were the most meaningful experiences you had today. What content was the most important? What interaction did you have with a friend that mattered to you the most? And was that connected to something that we did? And if not, then we go and try to do the work to figure out how we can facilitate that. And what we find is that, in the near term, maybe showing some people some more viral videos might increase time, right? But over the long term, it doesn't. It's not actually aligned with our business interest or the long-term social interest. So, in strategy terms, that would be a stupid thing to do. And I think a lot of people think that businesses are just very short-term oriented, and that we only care about. People think that businesses only care about the next quarter profit. But I think that most businesses that get run well, that's just not the case. And I think last year on one of our earnings calls, I told investors that we'd actually reduce the amount of video watching that quarter by 50 million hours a day, because we wanted to take down the amount of viral videos that people were seeing, because we thought that was displacing more meaningful interactions that people were having with other people, which in the near term might have a short-term impact on the business for that quarter, but over the long term would be more positive, both for how people feel about the products and for the business. And one of the patterns that I think has actually been quite inspiring or a cause of optimism in running a business is that oftentimes you make decisions that you think are going to pay off long down the road, right? So you think, okay, I'm doing the right thing long term, but it's going to hurt for a while. And I almost always find that the long term comes sooner than you think. And that when you make these decisions that they're maybe taking some pain in the near term in order to get to what will be a better case down the line, that better case, maybe you think it'll take 5 years, but actually it ends up coming in a year, right? And I think people at some deep level know when something is good, and I guess this gets back to the democratic values, because at some level, I trust that people have a sense of what they actually care about. And it may be that, if we were showing more viral videos, maybe that would be better than the alternatives that they have to do right now, right? I mean, maybe that's better than what's on TV, because at least they're personalized videos. Maybe it's better than YouTube if we have better content or whatever the reason is. But I think you can still make the service better over time for actually matching what people want. And if you do that, that is going to be better for everyone. So I do think the intrinsic design of these systems is quite aligned with serving people in a way that is pro-social. And that's...
Yeah, so just to deepen what Zuckerberg is saying, he's discussing something very important. And social media was created to allow people to interact with one another. But something happened. The more people were spending time on social media, was the more people were not having so-called meaningful social interactions. And people spent, like these days, children don't play outside like they used to do. Majority of them on social media. When they come back even from school, that's how they're living their lives. In the past, we used to have a lot of human contact. But I tend to disagree with that view of Zuckerberg because of one thing. We are naturally trained. We are a bit away from society. Now, what do I mean by that? In psychology and psychiatry, you have what is called antisociality. These are people who are antisocial. Naturally, they are antisocial or have very few social connections. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because social media brought antisocials to the society out. They were never known. I say this because in my life, when I started reading psychology and psychiatry, I realized I had that problem, that I was not a very social person. I always used to find myself in a different world, and many people never used to interact with me. Of course, it's also because of my queer life, being gay, and people used to, they would always, whenever I'm in school, this guy is so girly. He's here when you're at home. Why do you play like a girl? So like all of these things. So that is some of that which is homophobia and transphobia affects you, and it builds to the antisociality. You become an antisocial person. And this is why I came out on social media. I didn't come out on TV, mainstream TV. I didn't go out in the street and declare I'm gay. I got a social media account, Facebook account. I was able to read, and I was on internet. And I was living my gay life before social media came. I had my gay life. I knew how I was gay. I was a Christian gay man, I'm in church. I was singing, I was playing the keyboard, and that was me. And after that, I would go home. Nobody in the world knew me other than my friends. Nobody. And when I started blogging, again, because of the internet, I blogged. So the internet is what changed this antisocial person's life. And antisocials come out, and like me, that's how I came out. I came out and told people what my orientation was. Everything that has happened in my life was social media. Yes, everything. Especially when social media was introduced and the internet was introduced. So basically, I was living on the internet. So the problem people need to understand, antisociality is also considered a symptom of a mental disorder. So many people are like that, but not so many. And very many introverts tend to fall into that category, because introverts don't tend to be social. So why am I saying this? I'm now saying that now Facebook wants to solve that, and they have started reducing people's time on social media. But I am different. I think that positivize time. Don't demonize social media. Make it positive. Yeah, positivize it. Let people, like, if you spend a lot of time on social media, work for a social media company. That's where I challenge Facebook. What they were supposed to do was supposed to set up Facebook offices in every country they exist. Yes. By doing that, you will keep people, these people who are addicted to social media will work for you. And then they will be the ones to regulate Facebook, not the government. Because there was an idea Zuckerberg threw out, and he said he wants the government to regulate Facebook. That's dangerous, because there are dictatorships that will use Facebook and collapse it. So that's already happened in Uganda. There's attacks, social media attacks. So what does that mean? People left Facebook in Uganda. The poor, whose voices need to be heard, they are already out of Facebook. So what does this mean? It's bad for the country, because the country does not know what the people are feeling. It's like gagging people, don't talk, you know. And so when you do that and people get revolutionary minded, they can topple the government. Of course, there are many ways of surveying a country, but what I'm just trying to tell you is that you have to encourage a democratic space. Let people talk. Let people say what they want to say, even if it's against the government. What they're not supposed to do. And you see, when you have such a system, you will know who is anti-government. Yes. But now when you throw them out of Facebook, you don't know them. And you've thrown them out of Facebook, but you've not thrown their ideas away. So they go into small cells and they teach people this anti-government rhetoric. Then one day when there's a riot, they will all come out, and then you have a French Revolution altogether. So what you're supposed to do, be democratic, let people be on social media, and don't go back to the past. There's another dangerous move being made by very many countries of retrogression. These countries are going back to the past as if they can undo technology. You can't undo it. Facebook has come. It's too late. It's too late. Twitter has come. It's too late. They have changed culture. It's a fact. It's a fact. Culture has changed. So you can't go back to the past thinking you will change the culture. It's madness. It's gone. Everything is gone. People already know the truth. So what do? Go with the wind. It has changed. Now change the systems. That's what the governments are supposed to do. Government is supposed to engage with people on social media. Yes, go and engage with them. You see how Trump does it? Yes, that's how you do it. You go and stay there on the internet with the people. They will feel like, yes, our president, we can touch him, we can talk to him, we can abuse him. Look at how many people Trump has blocked on Twitter. So many. Guys have attacked him until we said, no, this one, block him. So that's what you need to understand with Twitter and all of these social media accounts. We can't destroy them. They have already happened. The knowledge of making them is there. So what do? Modify your systems to fit the new technology of today. Right.
Certainly what I care about in running this company is to get there.
Yeah, I think this is like the rock bottom. That this is the most important issue, that ultimately what I'm hearing from you and from many other people when I have these discussions is ultimately the customer is always right, the voter knows best, people know deep down, people know what is good for them, people make a choice, if they choose to do it, then it's good. That has been the bedrock of at least Western democracies for centuries, for generations. And this is now where the big question mark is. Is it still true in a world where we have the technology to hack human beings and manipulate them like never before, that the customer is always right, that the voter knows best? Or have we gone past this point? And we can know, the simple ultimate answer that, well, this is what people want and they know what's good for them, maybe it's no longer the case.
Well, yeah, I think that it's not clear to me that has changed, but I think that's a very deep question about democracy. I don't think that's a new question. I mean, I think it's people have always.
No, the question is that the technology is new. I mean, if you lived in 19th century America and you didn't have these extremely powerful tools to decipher and influence people, then it was a different.
Well, let me actually frame this a different way,
okay.
Which is, I actually think, for all the talk around is democracy being hurt by the current set of tools and the media and all this, I actually think that there's an argument the world is significantly more democratic now than it was in the past. I mean, the country was set up as the U.S. was set up as a republic, right? So a lot of the foundational rules limited the power of a lot of individuals being able to vote and have a voice, and checked the popular will at a lot of different stages, everything from the way that laws get written by Congress, right, and not by people. So to everything to the Electoral College, and which a lot of people think today is undemocratic, but it was put in place because of a set of values that a democratic republic would be better. I actually think what has happened today is that increasingly more people are enfranchised, and more people have a voice. More people are getting the vote, but increasingly people have a voice. More people have access to information, and I think a lot of what people are asking is that good? It's not necessarily the question of, okay, the democratic process has been the same, but now the technology is different. I think the technology has made it so individuals are more empowered, and part of the question is that the world that we want? And again, this is an area where it's not that, all these things are with challenges, right? And often progress causes a lot of issues, and it's a really hard thing to reason through. Wow, we're trying to make progress and help all these people join the global economy, or help people join the communities and have the social lives that they would want and be accepted in different ways. But it comes with this dislocation in the near term, and that's a massive dislocation, so that seems really painful. But I actually think that you can make a case that we are at and continue to be at the most democratic time. And I think that overall, in the history of our country at least, when we've gotten more people to have the vote, and we've gotten more representation, and we've made it so people have access to more information, and more people can share their experiences, I do think that that's made the country stronger and has helped progress. And it's not that this stuff is without issues. It has massive issues, but that's at least the pattern that I see, and why I'm optimistic about a lot of the work.
I agree.
Okay, so basically, Zuckerberg is saying that he's calling for, of course, what I've got from him, and the most important thing I've got from him right now is that for the system to change, of course we're going, of course he's, what's he advocating from? Let me see, I was disrupted by a knock on the door, but I'll remember what he was saying right now. Before I finish this video, we'll do part 4. Now, let me get just one word, and then I'll remember exactly what he was on. By
the current set of tools and the media and all this.
I don't from this.
Maybe it's better than YouTube do the work to figure out how we can facilitate that. And what we find is that Yeah, in the near term, maybe showing some people some more viral videos might increase time, right? But over the long term, it doesn't.
People can express their voices. It's also
Not necessarily the question of, okay, the democratic process has been the same,
Good.
but now the
I
technology
what
is.
I wanted to say, and then we'll close this video. Now, I like his discussion about technology changing everything. That's why I even lifted up my hand, and how even the American election process is going to change. Now, the Electoral College faced a very big blow, an apocalyptic blow. And we're going to still do another video about apocalypse, that science is apocalyptic. So people got to know that the Electoral College has certain people that the people don't meet. They don't know whether, the people don't know how these people are picked up, or even if they know, does it reflect the diversity of the population? So it's like the Oscars, what happened. You know, in the past, nobody used to bother about the Oscars, the panel that picks up the winners, until when people started noticing a trend. And they noticed a trend, then they said, but where are our black folk? And they do a lot of acting. And then they realized that's when the apocalypse happened. They lifted up the lid and they found majority of the voters in the Oscars are white men. And they were saying, no, that can't happen. Because, of course, their understanding, which is very right, is your view is so similar because you are the same. And it would be nice if you have a diverse bench of judges who decide the same thing, because that means that movie was so good that even a black woman judge can say, yes, I like that movie because it brought out this factor. So we're not diversifying these colleges, electoral colleges, and these judge benches because the person is so that they can vote black people. No, it's so that there is the winner is really a winner. You know, he's not winning because he's a racist. He's winning because, or he's white. He's winning because he really made a good movie that makes everybody or many people very happy. So that's what Zuckerberg is saying, and I agree with him that technology is really challenging legal systems because it's bringing changes to the legal systems. And that's why the world is the way it is right now. There's a lot of chaos. It's because we have the truth, we have technology. The systems have to change.